Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Without any further ado, let's begin one of my favorite Mahnwa stories that I've been really excited to share with you all. So, let's dive right into the story. Our story begins with a defeated demon king, his reality shattered as he falls into utter denial. Even after slaying countless heroes, he finally comes to a horrifying realization. He had been completely blind to the truth of his situation. Somehow, he had failed to understand the true nature of the heroes standing before him. To his disbelief, they remained completely unscathed, untouched even by his overwhelming power and signature black flames. He couldn't comprehend it. How had the hero, renowned as the sword god, so effortlessly pierced his supposedly impenetrable scales and struck straight through his heart? Truly bewildered, he could only question how such a humiliating defeat had come to pass. His thoughts drift back to the beginning, a life that once shone with unmatched brilliance. He had been the top student at the Demon King Military Academy, graduating with the highest honors. He devoted his entire existence to the study of the Demon King standards, an ancient doctrine he followed with unwavering faith. Following its teachings to the letter, he built a towering fortress, kidnapped princesses, and played the role of the perfect villain. His strategy even included nurturing the very heroes who would come to defeat him. Because to a demon king, nothing was more delicious than the anger and despair of heroes. Killing them too early was wasteful. The true art, he believed, was to let them grow stronger, so their eventual despair would be even more exquisite. Convinced he was the most devoted follower of the standards, he believed his conquest of the world was inevitable. He fed on the sorrow and rage of heroes and civilians alike, growing into what he thought was the ultimate demon king. And yet, despite following every rule perfectly, he now lay defeated, dying upon his own throne. Desperate, his mind raced to understand how his flawless plan had failed so miserably. But the hero only laughed. Mocking his confusion, he revealed a cruel truth. This outcome was nothing new. Demon kings like you always meet the same end, he said coldly. You bring about your own downfall, and then act surprised when it happens. The demon king cursed in disbelief, refusing to accept such humiliation. But the hero continued, dismantling his entire strategy piece by piece. Kidnapping a famous princess, leaving obvious clues, guiding heroes straight to his tower. You're not a mastermind, the hero sneered. You're predictable. He even mocked his lack of true villainy, suggesting that assassinating the human king would have caused far greater chaos. The demon king knew that strategy, but it went against the sacred standards, because without focused hatred from heroes, he couldn't grow stronger. Then came the final blow to his pride. The hero mockingly thanked him for the training. Sending monsters to villages, that only made the hero stronger. His tower? A perfectly designed dungeon, starting with weak enemies, allowing them to level up and sharpen their skills. It was never a fortress, it was a training ground. Even now the Demon King clung desperately to his beliefs, insisting he had only followed the standards. But reality was merciless. The hero's blade cut through his justifications as easily as it cut through his flesh. Then the truth was revealed. This world was a repeatable quest, a game that resets every time the final boss is defeated. And he, the Demon King, was nothing more than the final boss. The other heroes burst into laughter. They mocked him, thanked him, called him their godfather for creating the perfect place to grow stronger. Those words echoed in his mind as the devastating truth sank in. His entire life's work was nothing more than a game. The hero, almost amused, gave him a backhanded compliment. "You were strong," he admitted. "You even killed quite a few heroes." Then he smirked. "But all that matters is that this victory made me famous." And with that, the hero raised his sword, ready to deliver the final condescending blow. Rage consumed the Demon King. He trembled with fury at the humiliation of being toyed with by a mere hero. Doubt crept into his mind as he questioned everything. What was the purpose of the standards if they only led him to this disgraceful end? Refusing to accept such a meaningless death, he forced his broken body to move, gathering the last remnants of his strength. With a final desperate roar, he lunged forward, one last attack to reaffirm who he was. But in an instant, a flash! The hero's blade moved faster than lightning, and his head was severed. As his vision spun, his head struck the ground. For a fleeting moment, he caught sight of the heroes standing over him. His blood sprayed into the air, and all that remained in his fading vision were their feet before him. Even then, he did not let go of his hatred. As life slipped away, he silently marked them all, and swore revenge on those who had dared look down on him. The heroes stood firm, unfazed. The hero casually declared that the Demon King's horns would be his trophy. But then, something changed. The Demon King's body began to glow with an eerie purple light. Confusion flickered through his fading consciousness. This was his final act. He was burning the last of his very essence, fueling a vengeful spell born from pure hatred. The hero's smug expression disappeared. He realized immediately this was no ordinary death throw. "Everyone, run!" But it was too late. A massive explosion of purple energy tore through the throne room, swallowing everything in its path. The hero, his comrades, all of them were engulfed in the devastating blast. In his final moments, the Demon King finally understood. The standards were never a path to power. They were chains. Chains that made him predictable, weak, and doomed from the very beginning. He cursed his blind faith. If only he had chosen his own path. If only, with his last fading thought, he made a vow. "If I am ever given another chance, I will abandon those foolish standards and become a truly unpredictable Demon King." His tower exploded. Darkness consumed him, and from the void, a name echoed. "Burge?" His eyes snapped open. He gasped, surrounded by unfamiliar, yet strangely familiar faces. Young demons stood all around him. Confusion gripped him. Impossible. He was alive. "Burge," his name was called from the podium. Slowly he stepped forward, his mind racing. Then it hit him. The academy, the stage, the red badge. This was his graduation day at the Demon King Military Academy. The realization struck like lightning. He had returned, 15 years into the past. As the top student, he was summoned to the stage to recite the sacred pledge. Before him stood the Demon King standards, the very doctrine that had led him to ruin. He stared at them in silence. Once he had followed these rules as if they were absolute truth. In his past life, he had executed them perfectly. And where had that led him? To death, to humiliation, to becoming nothing more than a tool for heroes. Now, he saw them for what they truly were. A script, a joke. Disgust twisted his expression. The thought of swearing loyalty to those rules again filled him with unbearable rage. The announcer smiled, unaware of the storm brewing within him. Please begin the recitation. He clenched his teeth, took a deep breath, and shattered everyone's expectations. In a calm yet defiant voice that echoed across the silent hall, he refused. His fellow graduates and the faculty stood frozen in stunned silence, unable to comprehend what they had just heard. Then he unleashed all the fury he had been holding back. "I will not pledge myself to such a foolish doctrine," he shouted. "The Demon King standards are nothing but trash." Gasps echoed through the hall. His classmates were left utterly speechless, completely shaken by this unprecedented act of rebellion from the Academy's top student.
The shockwave of his declaration shattered the composure of everyone present. Even the Academy director's face twisted into a mask of pure fury at this public humiliation. The word trash echoed throughout the entire Academy, a sound that would change the course of history. And just like that, the Academy's most brilliant student instantly became its biggest failure, throwing away his future to forge a new one. Following his blasphemous graduation speech, an enraged fist slams down from the High Council's balcony. The furious Archduke Arcane Blarum roars his name, warning that insulting the sacred Demon King's standards is a crime punishable by immediate execution. Considering the previous outstanding talent, they give Ha a last chance. The ultimatum is clear: apologize to the entire demon realm or be deployed to the dreaded suicide mission known as Aryan. Just then, the demons murmured that Aryan was known as a deadly dimension where countless demon kings had met their end, a place they all considered a death sentence. Many in the crowd sneer, believing a criminal who insults the standards deserves death, not a chance for an apology. Driving the point home, the Archduke describes Aryan as the worst possible domain, a veritable graveyard for demon kings. Staring back without a hint of fear, he shatters the tension with two simple words: "Send me there," and declares that he will willingly go to Aryan just to prove that the Demon King's standards are nothing but garbage. Just then, Archduke makes a spell to teleport him into Aryan without wasting time and declares, as punishment for his heresy, he is stripped of all his hard-earned privileges and will be sent to his new domain completely alone. He is cast out from the demon realm, forbidden from returning until he successfully completes the occupation of Aryan. Plummeting toward his new home, he calmly accepts the consequences, noting to himself that he is finally being sent back to that place. His destination is Aryan, the very same land where the heroes who killed him in his past life are waiting. He revealed this was no accident. Even before his regression, he had specifically chosen the high difficulty zone of Aryan for his conquest, and believed that as the strongest, it was his duty to conquer the most challenging territory. But that arrogance led to his demise, as he failed to realize that countless heroes were exploiting the predictable rules of the Demon King's standards, and makes a cataclysmic landing, crashing into the peak of a frozen mountain. Spreading his demonic wings, he rises from the crater, having arrived in the desolate Ear Mountains of the northern continent. And now he vows that he will not let history repeat itself. This time, he will be the one exploiting the system. Then declares his new strategy. He is going to exploit the hero standards. A flashback is revealed. The top graduate of the Demon program, Gordon Dyke, is meticulously getting ready. He fastens his pristine uniform, preparing for the prestigious role that awaits him. Looking sharp and feeling confident, he is ready to begin his service. According to Demon Realm regulations, the Academy's top demon is assigned to serve the top Demon King, a pairing of the best of the best. Fellow students buzz with excitement, remarking how lucky he is to be serving the legendary Lord Burge, but the second and third place graduates can only watch with envy, wishing they had worked harder for the honor of serving him. He smiles humbly, stating that all Demon Kings are great people. Then his expression quickly shifts to one of fanatical devotion as he internally proclaims that none are as great as Lord Burge. As a once-in-a-millennium prodigy, Burge is a living legend, and he feels it is an enormous blessing just to be in the same graduating class. After that, he envisions a glorious future, imagining grand statues commemorating the legendary conquest he and Lord Burge will achieve together, and dreams of being etched into the glorious pages of history right beside his master, eagerly awaiting Burge's speech. But his heroic fantasy is abruptly shattered by Burge's voice echoing from the stage. That's wrong. He and the entire audience are stunned into silence, completely blindsided by his sudden and bizarre interjection. Then he unleashes his ultimate heresy upon the assembly, screaming that the sacred Demon King standards are nothing but trash.
The scandalous declaration shatters Gordon's entire worldview, his face contorting in abject horror and disbelief. Despite the shocking turn of events, he upholds his duty, following his new master to the remote Urgus Mountains in Aryan, and stares at the desolate, snowy landscape in utter confusion. Wondering why on earth they are here, Burge turns, surprised to see his subordinate, noting that despite the Archduke's words, they sent a demon to accompany him after all. Gordon looks at his new master, completely bewildered by the situation he has been thrown into. Our guy calmly greets his new and very confused right-hand man. Then a frantic Gordon demands to know why he would commit such a career-ending act, but his new master plays dumb.
He explodes, screaming about how his insult to the standards has doomed them both to die in the heroin-infested lands of Aryan. As his subordinate has a complete meltdown, he coolly advises him to calm down before he rips his hair out. He is taken aback by this behavior, recalling that the Gordon from his previous life was confident and composed, not prone to panic attacks, and was actually motivated by the challenge of Aryan, believing that together they could conquer anything. But now he understands Gordon's current panic is justified, but knows that telling him about the regression would only make him sound insane. Gordon struggles to catch his breath in the thin mountain air, trying to pull himself together after his outburst.
Rule 1 of the Standards. A Demon King must build a tower in a place where heroes can easily find it, and argues that this remote, monster-filled mountain range violates the rule, and insists they must move to a more suitable location. But our guy flatly rejects the advice, declaring, "No, I'm building the tower here," as he prepares to plant the tower seed. And he plunges the tower seed, an artifact that grows into a fortress when fed a Demon King's blood, into the snow. Aghast, Gordon accuses him of throwing away his pride and directly defying the standards, but he retorts that he never swore an oath to follow them.
Our guy understands his subordinate's disgust, knowing that for most demons, faith in the standards is a deeply ingrained part of their being, then reflects that he was once the same, and only a drastic experience like death could have allowed him to reject the dogma. With newfound conviction, he clenches his fist, drawing his own blood to begin the ritual. As his blood drips onto the seed, he instructs Gordon to listen well, stating that the standards are garbage, especially in a place like Aryan. Gordon is utterly powerless to stop his master from committing one heretical act after another. The ground begins to rumble violently as the seed reacts to the blood. Then the tower seed erupts with a blinding flash of red demonic energy. An immense shock wave of power spreads across the mountaintop, heralding the tower's birth. Our guy finally reveals the core of his new strategy. He is breaking the rules because he knows from bitter experience that this land contains far too many powerful enemies to be constrained by predictable tactics. As the summoning ritual proceeds, a magic circle identifies its user, Burge of the Black Flame demonic dragon tribe. With the identification complete, the summoning begins, and the massive foundation of a demonic tower bursts forth from the snow. After that, our guy explains that demon kings kept dying here because humans had figured out a critical tower mechanism, and they use our standard against us.
Gordon is stunned as Burge rebrands the sacred text, declaring that in this land they should be called the Heroes' Standards. In defiance of all tradition, his menacing tower now stands complete in the forbidden, isolated mountain range. Gordon stares up at the impossibly placed structure, his mind reeling from the fact that Burge actually summoned the tower here. After that, our guy calmly beckons his subordinate to follow him inside, leaving a hesitant Gordon to trail behind. They step onto the first floor of the tower, only to find a massive, completely empty hall. Gordon observes the lack of monsters or traps, Riley, noting that this barren tower is a perfect fit for a disgraced demon king with no privileges.
Their ascent reveals every floor is the same, culminating in an equally empty demon king's chamber on the 5th floor.
Accepting that he cannot undo the tower, he pivots, insisting that they must at least follow the standards Rule 2. Rule 2 dictates that a demon king must kidnap a prince or princess, preferably one with high succession rights, to maximize the demonic energy they can generate. Hoping to salvage the mission, he formally requests permission to advise his king, which Burge grants. Then he pulls out a map and points to the nearby kingdom of Khorasan as the most logical first target, and passionately urges him to kidnap their highest-ranking princess to absorb the kingdom's sorrow and quickly grow in power. To Gordon's complete surprise, he agrees to the kidnapping plan without any argument. However, he clarifies that he has a different target in mind, a specific princess he has already set his sights on. Then Gordon offers to accompany his master, but he ordered him to stay behind and guard the residence. Relieved, Gordon convinces himself that he is finally acting like a proper demon king and that his earlier outburst was disgraduation stress. Full of renewed hope for their glorious future, he asks which high-value princess our guy plans to bring back, but he simply says, "Well," and declares his target is in the kingdom of Hilderon, the nation located at the farthest possible point on the continent from their tower. In that distant kingdom, a lonely princess sits in her lavish room. Spreading his demonic wings against the full moon, he descends upon the royal balcony. His target is the 13th princess, the royal with the absolute least political presence and importance in the entire kingdom. Unveiling his demonic horns, he formally introduces himself to his terrified low-value prize. "I've come to take you, princess." Back at the tower, Gordon realizes his master's plan is the complete and total opposite of what the standards demand, sending him into another fit of rage. Executing his unconventional plan, he advances toward the royal bedchamber to abduct the princess. She looks up, not with fear, but with curious surprise, asking the horned intruder who he is. He flatly introduces himself as the Demon King, who has come specifically to kidnap her. Instead of screaming in terror, she simply smiles in response to the shocking revelation and coyly challenges her would-be captor, asking if he is truly capable of handling her, leaving him utterly baffled. He finds her question bizarre, wondering if she is joking, but confidently asserts his capability as a Demon King. With a cheerful and surprisingly willing expression, she declares that she will let him take her, further deepening his confusion. Now carrying his strangely calm captive, he questions her composure, but she explains that as a princess, she always anticipated a day like this might come. But he remains suspicious, warning her that he is too desperate to fall for any tricks she might be planning. She calmly refutes his suspicion, pointing out the absurdity of being able to set a trap for a demon king whose arrival was completely unforeseen. He has to admit she has a point. Yet he cannot shake the uncomfortable feeling that something is off about this situation. Just then she extends his hand and willingly accepts his offer to depart. He takes flight with his new captive, soaring through the snowy skies toward his newly established tower in the desolate Erst Mountains. Upon his return, Gordon greets his master, relieved to see that he has come back safely from his mission. To Gordon's surprise, he decides against imprisoning the princess, instead ordering her to be kept on the 4th floor as a show of leniency for her unusual cooperation. Just as they settle in, he informs his master that he has something important to report. Now the princess is left alone in the vast, empty expanse of the tower's 4th floor.
Touching the cold, hard stone, the reality of her situation seems to sink in, as she realizes she has truly been kidnapped and reflects on the harshness of her new environment. A stark contrast to her pampered life, now with no pillows, blankets, or maids. Her thoughts drift to the beautiful gardens of her kingdom.
Another luxury now absent from her life in the Demon's Tower. However, despite the complete lack of creature comforts, A sly smile spreads across her face as she concludes that her new situation is not so bad after all. Meanwhile, our guy learns from Gordon about an unexpected invitation from a place called the Tower of Beasts and explains it is a welcome party for the new Demon King. But he scoffs, dismissing it as a hazing ritual by the established powers. Just then, he thinks Demon Kings are typically too proud to cooperate, but the constant threat of heroes in Aryan forced them to work together. Although he once ignored them as weak-minded, he decides at this time he should at least attempt some light exchanges with the other Demon Kings. After that, he and Gordon travel to the jungle-enveloped Tower of Beasts to meet its master. They are greeted by the intimidating Demon King of Beasts, Draxen, who introduces himself while feasting on a massive leg of meat and declares that he has ruled this territory for the past 70 years. Then he sizes up Burge, unimpressed by the newcomer who dared to mock the traditional ways of the Demon Kings. Already regretting his decision to come, he cuts to the chase, bluntly asking if Draxen is just here to pick a fight. Then Draxen reveals his true purpose. He was instructed by Archduke Arcane to watch over him upon his arrival in Era. But our guy simply addresses him as a noisy old vampire geyser. Outraged by his blatant disrespect for the Archduke, Draxen snarls that the newcomer has some serious guts. As a show of dominance, he slams his half-eaten meal onto the ground in front of him and menacingly orders him to lick the meat off the floor as penance for his impedance. But Burge calmly asks if the Beast King knows the real reason for his visit, to which he arrogantly replies, it is because he mocked their orthodox ways. Then our guy reminds him that Demon Kings are forbidden from killing one another. However, in a shocking display of power, he stomps his foot, shattering the ground beneath them. The display of immense power leaves Draxen utterly shocked and questions why you would ever think he would follow a rule he has already publicly renounced. Struck by the sheer force of his aura, Draxen is momentarily stunned, terrified by the newcomer's hidden power. And he says the Archduke told him to check whether he had properly kidnapped the princess. If he failed to report back within a month, he would lose his authority. As he and Gordon turn to leave, he casually informs the stunned Draxen that he has in fact already kidnapped a princess and adds that the princess he chose happens to suit his personal taste, leaving the Beast King bewildered. Having successfully asserted his dominance, he returns with Gordon to the cold security of his own tower. Gordon praises his master for the excellent display of a Demon King's majesty, but he dismisses it, confident that Draxen won't be a problem for now. Still, he decides they need to be prepared and orders him to check on the princess's condition, musing that he should learn how to make use of her. Gordon makes his way to the 4th floor to check on their royal captive. Alone, he reflects that if this is the hostile stance of the other Demon Kings, things are going to get troublesome, and realizes the consequences for mocking the orthodox ways are greater than he expected, but remains resolute in his choice. He reaffirms his conviction, declaring that he would rather die than bow his head to the trash that is the Demon King's standards. Determined to avoid his past mistakes, he checks his status, expecting only a few hundred demonic energy points from kidnapping a low-rank princess, and is shocked to see his points total over 13,000, a number far exceeding his most optimistic calculations. Suddenly, a system notification appears, informing him that he has received a video recording from the Tower of Beasts. On the recording, Draxen congratulates him, offering the video as a gift after their less-than-ideal first meeting. His message praises Beard's achievement in Aryan, expressing admiration and wondering if mocking the orthodoxy was just a clever cover. As he listens, a dreadful realization dawns on him. Something is terribly wrong with his plan. Just then, Gordon bursts into the room in a panic, shouting that there is a serious problem on the 4th floor. The scene shifts to the 4th floor, which is no longer a barren hall, but a vibrant, flourishing natural landscape. Butterflies flutter among lush flowers and greenery in a complete and impossible transformation of the stone tower. As our guy arrives, his mind reeling in disbelief at the sight before him. The system status confirms the impossible. The entire 4th floor is undergoing a process of naturalization. He finds a princess casually relaxing amidst her creation, surrounded by elemental spirits, and realizes in horror that she has created an entire ecosystem inside his tower, and reflects that he knows this is a feat only possible for someone who has mastered the four elements, a skill belonging to the sole spiritist on the continent. Connecting the dots, he confronts her, stating that she is not the 13th princess he intended to abduct, a fact she readily confirms. A cold sweat breaks out on his face as the horrifying truth of his blunder begins to dawn on him. With a triumphant grin, she reveals her true name, Ernan Hilderin, first princess of the powerful Hilderin kingdom. News of the first princess's abduction spreads like wildfire, reaching the grand Hilderin kingdom. The king of Hilderin explodes in fury, roaring for his strongest heroes and the entire military to be gathered immediately, and declares war, vowing to behead the foolish demon king and rescue his precious daughter at all costs.